welcome along. We're up to episode 20 of a Thai football podcast with me, Dale Farrington.
And me, Rob Bernard.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Yourself?
Very well, actually. Thank you. Yeah, I've had a really enjoyable weekend watching some great Thai football. It's been very entertaining.
It was indeed.
There was the big match at the summit of T1, Port against Bangkok United.
Shall we hear what they've got to talk about, the lads?
Yeah, so we've got both sides of the story. We like a bit of balance on this podcast, don't we?
Yeah. None of us like Bury Ram.
No comment. So we're going to start with Jim Clarke, and he's going to start off by telling us about the Port Bangkok United game, and then we kind of chatted a little bit more in general terms about what's going on at the Pat Stadium and what his hopes are for the rest of the season. Hello, Jim, and welcome along.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. And you?
Excellent, thank you.
And you've come on to talk about the big game, top of the table clash, Port against Bangkok United. So I just really want to get your thoughts. What were your expectations going into the game?
Well, at the start of last week, I said that I didn't expect us to win either game, and we didn't. Look, on Wednesday against Buriram, we did okay, and then the weekend fixture was a bit of a disaster, really. It wasn't just that we lost, it was that we were particularly poor. Was the overall impression I had of it. We were well beaten.
Just watching on TV, which I was, it seemed a bit low key. It didn't seem to live up to its billing, really.
Well, I mean, I think partly it's a derby that isn't a derby. I don't want to come across as I think I'm not sure if it's their biggest derby, but certainly we don't view it as there's only one derby for us. There's only one game in Bangkok that matters. We want to beat them. Obviously, they're they're an upper echelons of the league team, and we want to beat them, and it is a local game, so we do want to win it, but it's not quite like that. I mean, it has been blood and thunder in the last few years, but that's more that the two teams have clashed rather than any sense of occasion towards it, and that wasn't really there this year. There was after they scored, there was a few moments where the crowd were a little bit belligerent, but it never really got going in that way, the way that it does in some games, and it has in the past. They scored early, and then they sat back and they defended their lead, which is absolutely their right to do. And you never felt that the goal was coming for Port. It was the game never sparked itself to become an event. So I'd agree. It was an annoying, niggly game. They wasted a lot of time. That started very early, and again, that is completely their right. The referee's got to step in and do something about that, and he never did. And they played, and they came with a tactic and played it and pulled it off.
I think they call it game management, don't they?
Their keeper was particularly professional at that, much to the annoyance of the Port crowd. But the referee should have booked him. He started time wasting after 20 minutes, but he got away with it. And until the referee stops him doing it, there's nothing that we can do about it. And it's very annoying when you're on the receiving end of it. Equally, with those games, with the two games that we've had this week, what you need to do sometimes is think, much as this is annoying, reverse the situation with these controversial things. And I think, if we'd gone 1-0 up in either of the games last week after 6 minutes and then sat back and used the tactics as they did and held on for a win, we would have been very happy to do that. So we can't really get angry at them for doing that. We had a go at breaking them down, and we created more pressure in the first half, and we had some goalmouth scrambles. We didn't really do anything, and then the second half we were very blunt. There wasn't a lot going on for us in the second half.
Put that entirely down to Bangkok United's tactics, because obviously you've been free scoring this season. It's the goals have been flying in. As you've said, it just didn't happen on Saturday. Do you think there was something lacking from your side as well?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we've fallen away a little bit in the last few weeks. It's not been as good. We're still very much felt that something like this has been coming, and obviously the Sukhothai result was not great. There's something in it. I mean, our XG for Saturday was the lowest it's been all season. We put up 1.18 XG on Saturday against BU, and again, a lot of that is credit to how they played. Our second lowest XG of the season was away at Sukhothai, and Sukhothai, I watched them play on Sunday, and they are very good, but they are also they're going to finish in the lower half, I think, and there's just something's not quite clicking at the moment for Port. We struggle sometimes to be a team. We're tactically naive, and we're always tactically naive. You look at teams like BU, and they have a tactical identity. They work a little harder sometimes. There's just something not quite working at Port that never quite goes right.
Where'd you go from here? What about the rest of the season?
Part of the reason we did so well is that we had a very soft opening run of fixtures, and we've got a horrible run coming up now. We go Chiang Rai away, home to BG, then we have Chonburi away, and then Buriram at home, and then we finish the first leg with an away trip to Ratchaburi. So it's a horrible run of games to come now, and we've got to dig in and get a result from somewhere. We've got the League Cup game against Bangkok FC in the middle of that as well, which now is realistically the only thing that we can win this season. I never thought we'd win the league, and it's getting further. It's become more and more unlikely with the recent results. So we've got to dig in. The coaching team have got to try and find a spark to get it going. We've got this incredibly soft centre at the back. We've not kept a clean sheet this season, and we've not looked like keeping a clean sheet. You think even if we had got a goal, that we probably would have found it, or we would have found a way to concede again on the weekend. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we do really.
It'd be interesting to watch. Like you said, the much tougher games coming up. So how you adapt to that and how you play and what results you get in those games, I think it'll give us a bit of an indicator to how the rest of the season will pan out.
Absolutely. And then there's a mid-season break coming and a transfer window there, and Pang may go out and spend some money, which can work and it cannot work. We've spent money in the past with varying levels of success.
It does seem to be a bit of a haphazard way of signing players that Port have got. This is something that always crops up. You know, a lot of clubs seem to have an idea of the kind of players they want to sign and the kind of way they want to play. But Port just go out and buy players left, right and centre and then they don't always get a game. I mean, Charlie Clough's a prime example of that, isn't he?
Exactly. You know, he's the right kind of player. We need we do need that enforcer at the back, especially as we lost Dollar. We possibly could have done with a signing of a big, strong leader at the back anyway. And we've gone out and signed him. But the problem is now is that he played the first game of the season and he's been out and he's come back in after a long break. But he hasn't had game time. So even if we decide to bring him back in, he's off the pace. And it's very hard to just drop back in and from minute one be at 100%. And so we don't really have the time now to give him the time to get up to speed. So that hasn't worked. That's not worked out really as you'd hope. And I'm not really sure how we dig ourselves out of that situation.
You mentioned Dollar there. What were the reasons behind him leaving? That surprised me. He seemed to be like, a mainstay and kind of player that you build a team around, really.
He got what Port's about. He really got the club. He got the fans. He was involved in the community. He did lots of stuff with fans and helped them out, as a lot of the guys do, because it's an area which has problems and they help out. And he really got it. She should, more than anyone else, should have found the money to keep him, whatever the money was. Unless he was asking for something absolutely stupid, he should still be in a Port shirt.
And you mentioned the fans there, and obviously every time we chat about Port, the fans come up. One thing that was noticeable on Saturday was the attendance. And again, this was a topic of discussion on Twitter. The consensus seemed to be that it was quite disappointing. I mean, we were expecting, a full stadium, place would be rocking. I mean, what do you think the reasons for that were?
It was 5,000. I thought it was actually I didn't think it was any emptier than I expected, to be honest. I expected that crowd. It looked empty at points in the way that it always does, in that the drift in at the start of the first half, it's never very, it takes 10-15 minutes to fill up, and then it rained, a lot of people disappeared, and then you have the around half time in and out. But when it was at its busiest, it was quite full. I mean, at the moment they don't count the under 15s this year. I don't know if that, they don't pace it, and I don't know, I presume they're not counted, but I personally didn't expect a full house, so I wasn't concerned by that. In terms of the league growing, fans getting massive support, that's going to take a little more time than it is. So that wasn't a concern for me.
Again, you've just mentioned the Save the Thai League hashtag, I suppose we've got to call it. The top 4 or 5, if they can keep it quite close going into the final run-in, we could see crowds increase, couldn't we?
I agree that the potential is there, but I think it's the opposite. I think the top 2 are going to go away and will be considerable distance away from the rest. And then you will have a little group who will be fine, will be safe, and will possibly have a little battle for third place if there's anything in that. But if you then look at it below 5th, everybody's very, very close all the way down the table. And I think we could see a really great relegation battle where you could have basically lots of teams involved in that, and that will be interesting. Hopefully people come along and watch and are supporting their team's battle to stay up.
Let's hope so. Thanks so much, Jim. It's been great getting you on at last. I'm a big admirer of your work on Twitter. As you know, we've already mentioned it on this podcast a couple of times, so keep it up. Always causes debate, which is great for the game, I think. So brilliant. Thank you so much, and best of luck for the rest of the season, mate.
And thank you too. I mean, having run our website for a little while when it was up and running, I can appreciate how much work goes into putting out even a little bit of content. So for you to put out a show every week of the length that you do, I understand that you must be putting in a real shift. So thank you again for that. Thanks for that, because it's something different, and I think a lot of people do appreciate it. So thank you.
Great, thanks. I mean, we couldn't do it without all the contributors, and I think the reaction we've had has been fantastic, and it's lovely to get so many different people involved, and it makes it a lot easier for us. So thank you.
Yeah, good stuff, Jim. I was pulled up during the week. I mentioned that I thought the gate was poor as well. Marco's pointed out to me that there was 193,000 people watched on YouTube. And as he quite rightly said, the clubs before the season pushed the TV deal, so maybe you can't have it both ways. But what it emphasised to me is that the reason why no Bangkok club will ever match Buriram if you can't sell that game out.
I think it was disappointing. I mean, obviously we touched on this in our chat. I think the party line coming from the Port fans is that's what they were expecting. But I think for the rest of us, this is the kind of game where you should really be filling the stadium. So I don't think the weather was an excuse, was it really?
No, not at all. I mean, Craig, if you're not going to go to a game if it rains in Thailand, you might half a season out.
Anyway, we're going to listen out to what Matt had to say. And again, he starts off talking about the match on Saturday. And then we go off and chat about, obviously, the AFC Champions League campaign and what his expectations are for the rest of the season. And he does make a very bold prediction, which you'll hear in this chat now. Welcome to the podcast, Matt. It's lovely to have you on.
Thank you, Dale. It's lovely to be here. First things first, just wanted to say big hats off to you and to Rob for the podcast. I think it's fantastic. Really, really enjoying it. Really enjoying being a part of it, but mostly really enjoying waking up Wednesday mornings for something to listen to. So credit to you guys on that. It gets me thinking a little bit, and it gives me some purpose, and it also makes me go to more games. So thank you to you for that, I guess, as well. So you're putting the pressure on me to do more games, which I like.
That's good to hear. Thank you. And I suppose at the moment, it's not that much of a chore, is it, going to watch Bangkok United?
It certainly isn't. Even going to Thammasat these days is quite a pleasure, to be totally honest. Not that I've been huge amounts of time to the home games this season, but it's an absolute delight at the moment to go and watch us play football. I think everything we are doing is great. We're playing football in the right direction. We're really well managed. We've cleaned up a lot of backroom. We've cleaned up a lot of salaries. We've cleaned up a lot of our play, our perhaps aggression towards referees. I think we're playing some fantastic football this season.
And you've been reaping the rewards as well. Top of the league, looking certs to qualify for the knockout stages of the AFC Champions League as well. So it's all good, isn't it?
It's really, really good. I think if we can knock over Kitchee again on Wednesday, I think we're pretty much there, which will be great because then we go to the Lion City game at home as well. So 2 home games against the 2 probably weaker sides in the group, although both caused us problems to certain points. But if we can knock over those 2, we go away to Korea on the last game to Jeonbuk, not needing anything. To be totally honest, we could send a second side up there and give the players a rest. So I'm hoping we get the job done Wednesday, and then in a couple of weeks' time the Lion City game, and then it would be good to move through to the next round.
And on the domestic front as well, things couldn't be better, could they? And coming up straight off the back of win on Saturday. So what were your thoughts on the weekend?
I've never been this confident, Dale, ever, to be honest. I'm always one of those people that, we're taking a draw and everything else. But, when we went to Port on Saturday, I took 9 or 10 friends with me, trying to convert them into the BUFC way of thinking. And I went into that game thinking, nothing but a win here will do. I felt confident. I hadn't seen much of Port this season, so I kind of, wasn't too sure what we were playing against. But you could, had to respect them. They're top of the league. They've not played anyone fantastic really yet. They've had a couple of fairly decent games, but they were still doing things right. So, but I felt we had enough quality to knock them over. And I thought during the game, we looked deserving winners. I was quite surprised actually at not how poor Port were, but they being a top of the table clash, they didn't seem to really bring enough quality to it. It was very niggly that first half. Lots and lots of fouls. I think we had 2 carried off in the first half. It was a feisty first half of football, but once the goal went in, I couldn't see us losing.
It did seem very low-key. I mean, I was only watching on television, but there didn't seem to be the kind of hostile atmosphere that I was expecting. And certainly, as you've just said, the Port team didn't really seem to rise to the occasion. Now, whether that was the way you played, whether you nullified that or not, I don't know. Maybe we should give you credit for that.
I think you're right. I think we did to a point. I think we nullified it a lot. I mean, they had very, very little in the way of chances the whole game. I don't recall our keeper having to make a serious save, a couple of catches and that, but nothing super serious. But I think, defensively wise, we've set up so well this season. We've remained so consistent, flat back four, that works super, super hard for each other. And once that goal went in, we went back to a 5 at the back. And I think, partly credit to us, but really, I was very surprised that Port didn't try to put more on us. And I think they were also mindful that we were trying to absorb pressure and then break away for a second goal. And that's exactly what happened. It took us to the 91st or 92nd minute to do that. But there was several times during the game where we had some super clear chances to go 2 up.
What was the atmosphere like in the away end? It looked like quite a decent following you had.
I love the away guys. It's the same set. And I've been fortunate enough to do probably more aways this season than homes. And I've been to Singapore and I went to Hong Kong as well. And you see the same faces. And we're a small away group, but they make a lot of noise and they are very, very passionate. And I would say genuinely, it felt like there were as many in the Port Stadium as there were sometimes at Thammasat on a Wednesday night when it's raining. So they really, really brought the noise. It was a fantastic atmosphere. And I genuinely think that these fans get the players over the line a lot of the time as well. They deserve some massive respect.
And is the belief there now? Are your own fans starting to take you seriously and your title challenge?
Talking to a few of the fans, there is a belief there now. I'm touching wood and I'm doing everything not to curse it. This season feels very different. This season feels like we have 11 players that are fully committed, that they are not playing for themselves. They're playing as a team. We've got some absolute workhorses in that side. And the only thing really that can undo us now would be injuries. We've got quite a small squad. And obviously we lost Titipan the other week and we've now lost Ping Tosawat as well. So our centre of midfield's kind of been a little bit torn apart, but each time other players have come in, Girardi's come in, Wissarat Amura came in, we've looked good, we've looked solid, and these guys are looking like they can stand up and bring something to the table, I think. And we always said about a small squad and getting tested, but it feels like top to bottom, these players are all playing for each other, which is something we probably not had before. To answer your question, the belief is 100% there at the moment. I feel we can go all the way. I think the ACL will be tough. I think we'll get through the group stages and then that will become tougher and tougher as we get further on. But the momentum's with us, and like I say, we've not lost this season, and long may that continue.
Winning's a good habit to get into, isn't it? And it breeds confidence.
Yeah. And winning ugly is good. I looked at the fixtures the other day, and we've knocked over a lot of the big teams, so we've still got effectively some of the weaker teams still to play. Although historically, that's sometimes where we do slip and slide a little bit, is against the weaker teams. But like I say, this season just feels different. I think Tochuan, the manager, is kind of he's not disciplining, and like I say, I can't knock him for effort and the players for effort. I think we've got some really, really wonderful players now, and I think when we look back at some of the players we did have that were kind of a little bit more showcase players, we've now got people that are willing to run and tackle and really, really kind of sweat for the team, and I love that.
I've got to ask you about the stadium situation, because this is something that always comes up with Bangkok United. They're quite isolated, aren't they, up there at Thammasat, and they deserve bigger crowds. Ideally, what would you like to see happen with the ground and the location?
It's such a difficult one because money no object. Obviously, you build a new stadium, you build it somewhere in town, and you give the city another club, basically much more central. But I think that's a really, really difficult thing to do in a short period of time, and there is nothing really in the city that we can jump to or move into in any way at all. And that stadium it's a great stadium when you look at it from the outside. When you get inside, it's just awful. It's another running track stadium. It's cold in its personality. It's a million miles away. I don't know, Dale, to be honest, what the answer is. But from a personal perspective, yes, I'd love to see something on the BTS line. I just don't know what happens next right now, to be totally honest. It is a real challenge to fill that stadium. It's a real challenge to even get it a quarter full, to be totally honest. And as I said, look at the Port Stadium, and there's a little bit of envy basically there. It took me 7 minutes from my house to jump on a bike and be there on Saturday, and it was lovely. It was really, really nice. And there's a pang of jealousy there. Stadium sharing with someone, I would genuinely be open to that. I'm sure the other clubs wouldn't be, but I don't see what happens next. I don't know what happens next. There was rumours a couple of years ago that they were looking for a site and a location, I think down towards Bang Na way, somewhere around there, but nothing seems to have moved forward on that. I think just money-wise, it's just a very, very expensive outlay for a club that doesn't have the fan base perhaps yet to do it. And I think what we need to do is start playing really, really well, grow our fan base within inside Thammasat to the point where we have a big enough fan base that we can justify a move, I guess.
Do the club actually engage with the locals in Thammasat?
The sponsors do. The club, to a point, does, yeah. I mean, to be honest, most of the engagement is obviously in Thai, so it kind of goes over my head. I stopped doing Google Translate a while ago to try and make out what they were saying. But there's a lot to do around the stadium beforehand. They work hard to try and give fans something there, and let a lot of kids into the ground for free or on low cost pricing. So they're really doing a lot to try and build the young fan base, which I kind of admire and appreciate. But I think there is more that could be done. Most definitely, I think there is a lot more that could be done. They could be doing advertising for the matches to a lot heavier level. I know they run the bus from Thai Japan Stadium out in Dindang. They do the bus that goes up from there for some fans that are based in the city. But I think, just some more heavier advertising perhaps and some more awareness around it could be a good thing. But the big hurdle is going 40 kilometres on a Wednesday night, with traffic. We have to leave at like 4:30 in the afternoon to get there for 7 p.m. to make sure that you're there on time. So that's the struggle with it, to be totally honest, Dale.
And what about the 9 people you took on Saturday? Do you think they're going to make the effort?
I think I've converted a couple of them, definitely. I think a couple of them, enviously looked at the Port Stadium and thought, I could do this again. It's nice and close. A couple of them were kind of really invested into the football. So I'm going to nurture those 2 or 3. I've got 2 guys that I go with fairly regularly as well. Joe and Danny, my good pals that I go with. And they come, I can drag them up to Thammasat and drag them to a few away games now and again. I'll take 2 more out of that 9. And if I get 4 or 5 total on it as a base, I'll be happy with that.
It's always nice, isn't it, to introduce new people to the game and get them interested in Thai football.
I like watching their reactions as well. Like I say, I think it's, you're looking at them. Are they comparing it to, they're all Brits. So are they comparing it to the Premier League? Are they comparing it to the Championship, Division 1, Division 2? What are they expecting? And I think most of them are just really, really happy with the atmosphere and the crowd and the level of football and the intensity. And, it's very different. It's a really good experience. And that's kind of why I wanted to take the guys to the away end, because, it's probably a better reflection of our fan base than maybe the home stadium is, maybe where everyone's spread out over 3 sides of the stadium. And that obviously becomes a much more difficult challenge then to try and, merge people together, basically. I kind of would almost actually be happier if we were playing at Thammasat and they actually closed off, the ends, for example. I think it's madness that we put the away fans in a completely open area, behind one of the goals. And I kind of get it in a way, but, no away team ever brings more than maybe 1,000. That's an aggressive amount. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but they could easily be put in a segregated area in one of the sides and create a bit more atmosphere there. I mean, you don't go to Bangkok United looking for trouble. Really, you don't. So I think there would be it would be good to try and bring that atmosphere in a little bit more and put the away fans in one of the sides and kind of close off the ends for everything other than just perhaps big games.
I know when Police United played there, that's what they did. I remember going with Chonburi and we were in the main stand. And the views from up there are fantastic. So maybe that is something they should be thinking of doing.
Yeah, I think it would make sense, because right now you get at Thammasat a lot of Bangkok United fans spread over a whole stand. So even if you bring in 3,000 or 4,000 people, you might have them kind of spread over 2 stands, but, and I think that's sometimes also where the atmosphere dilutes a little bit. And the part I love of going to football is having the away versus home, chanting and cheering and just sort of the head-to-head, not the aggressive side of things, but that's the fun side of it a little bit. And I think certainly at Thammasat, you lose that massively by having the away fans so far away from everyone else.
It's not pleasant watching from that away end. I can tell you. You can take that from me.
open to the elements and everything. It's horrible.
And we usually get beat there as well, so it makes it even worse.
Everyone does this season, Dale. Everyone does.
That brings us nicely to my final question, which is, what are your hopes and expectations now for the rest of the season? You've said there's a belief there. How strong is that belief, and how far do you think it's going to take you?
My heart and my head are saying different things. My heart is saying we're going to win the league. My head is still saying we've got trickier games still to come and we've got injuries. There's always a cautious side of me that holds back a little bit, but I'm going to put it now in audio. You can play at the end of the season. We are going to win the league this year.
Yeah, big prediction, Matt. And you know what? I still think Buriram will win it, but they're going to have to change the coach. That's the only thing that can derail you.
The new guy's not really working out, is he?
It's a bit hard to tell. They hardly ever play these days.
Yeah, weekend off again. So we'll see how they get on in the Champions League this week. I think that'll be a massive test for them. Going back to Bangkok United, I think, you've got to look at the form. They're the team, aren't they? As Matt pointed out, they haven't lost yet. They're going really well on the continental front. A win this week, that'll be pretty much them in the knockout stages. And then the league. I know we disagree on this, Rob. I think they'll win it. I agree with Matt. And I'll be happy to play that clip back at the end of the season.
Well, let's be honest. One of our very first episodes, Bangkok United turned Buriram over down at Rajamangala, and a lot of people just said, well, it's only a meaningless friendly. But they meant business.
And I think that's kind of given us some idea of what's played out this season, hasn't it? A little foretaste of what we've seen since. We'll keep our eyes on it and see what happens. On to a match that I had a particular interest in this weekend, and we've got Riza up with his report on the Ratchaburi Chonburi game, which was played at the Dragon Solar Park on Sunday.
Thai Football Podcast Match Reports.
Sawadee Krap, good evening from Dragon Solar Park. The match has ended between Ratchaburi against Chonburi FC. The first half, 2 corners with 2 goals, draw 1-1. But in the second half, Ratchaburi playing their best, but a stupid mistake by the defender get him a red card and it changed the game. Even though with 10 players, Ratchaburi still had their chances, but the Chonburi goalkeeper, Patrick Deito, is playing fantastic to stop the attack from Ratchaburi. But at the end, Chonburi can score the winner, and the match ended 2-1 for Chonburi. After this is the international break, and Ratchaburi away to Buriram. Don't know what to expect there later, but we will still keep on going cheering the Dragons. See you on the next one. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, Riza. Is there trouble ahead for Ratchaburi?
His report was very fair. I mean, he didn't go into too much detail. I felt that up until the sending off, they were probably just shading it. But certainly the second half, we were the better side, as you would expect with the man advantage. And certainly from a Chonburi point of view, it's very pleasing. Our last 3 away matches in the league have been at Buriram, Chiang Rai United and Ratchaburi, which are 3 places we never do very well at. And we've come out of them unbeaten. 5 points, a win and 2 draws, which I'd have been more than happy with going into that run. So just speaking about my club for a minute, I think it looks like we could have turned the corner. There was a few question marks against the new coach, and obviously this reliance on youth and whether the new foreigners were up to it. But we've gone a few games unbeaten now, a good win in the cup midweek against Konkan United. So it'll be interesting to see. I'd like to see us climb that table. It's very tight, isn't it?
It certainly is. A good point made by Jim earlier. At the bottom, it's perilously tight. You don't want to be on a bad run.
Definitely not. Anybody could get sucked into that relegation scrap. Normally you get a side and you say, yep, they're dead certs to go down. And I don't think that's the case this season.
No, not at all.
Anyway, next up, we've got Phil Williams making a return to the podcast. And Phil's been doing a lot of touring around, watching his team, Samut Prakan City. And this is a chat we had earlier in the week where he's brought us up to date with his journey around the southeast, isn't it? Down that corner of Thailand. And he's got some tales to tell. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome back, Phil. It's great to have you on again.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you very much for inviting me.
I'm surprised you've got the energy after all your recent travels.
It's been a tough few weeks. Because I returned from England from an annual family visit mid-October. And since then, there have been 5 games, 3 league games, a League Cup and an FA Cup. Where do you want to start?
I want to actually start by asking you about Kendal Town initially, because whilst you were on that annual trip to England, you did get to visit my hometown and to see my local side. So just very quickly, because obviously this is a Thai football podcast, what were your thoughts?
It was great. Whenever I go back to England, I always like to take in some non-league football if possible. And fortunately, we were up in Kendal Town, we're at home. Yeah, it was fantastic. Lovely little ground. But unfortunately, they lost. I can't even remember who it was to. I know it was 4-2, the final score. But they didn't play very well. But it was a good game. There was a sending off. There was some feisty tackles. There was a female lineswoman getting lots of abuse. And it was a very interesting evening.
It's a great little club, very friendly, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, even if the result wasn't the right one. Fast forward into your return home, you've been busy, haven't you? You've been around. I don't think you've had much time to settle since you've been back.
Yes, very busy.
So where have you been?
We travelled to Sattahip for the League Cup game against Fleet FC. Last week we were in Clarke for an FA Cup tie. And then nearby Chonburi for a T2 game, sorry. I've got us down for relegation already.
I believe you combined a couple of those trips and had a few nights in Chonburi, is that right?
Yes, we combined the last two, which was Clarke in the FA Cup and then Chonburi in the league. Fleet FC, the League Cup game was, there was a couple of weeks between that one. So we came back to Samut Prakan. Oh, we had a home match. We had a home match against UTR. Home league game. Very difficult to keep track. And December's even busier. December's crazy.
You've got the big game coming up on the 6th.
You mean the game against Chonburi, of course.
I do indeed.
We've got 3 home games in 6 days. At the beginning of December, we've got a league game against China, Chonburi in the League Cup, and then we've got Lampang, I think it is. And then we've got a long trip to Krabi. So it's a very, very busy December.
Are you going to go to Krabi?
We are. You've got to go to Krabi, haven't you? It's one of the most beautiful parts of Thailand. I mean, if there's ever a place you can combine football with a holiday, then Krabi is it. Well, from a football point of view, Krabi are bottom of the second division, and they haven't won a game this season. So if there's any chance of seeing us pick up a win on the road, then Krabi is going to be it. 3
points and a lovely break in an idyllic setting.
Perfect.
Now, one of the trips you've just made recently was as you've mentioned, was to the League Cup game at Fleet and the wonderfully named Battleship Stadium. So what were your impressions of the place?
Well, you've got 2 or maybe 3 stadiums all within that sort of naval base complex, haven't you? It's very easy to confuse them. But we did get the ground right in the end, and we did have to ask for directions. Yeah, it's a lovely, homely little ground. You know, I love going to these places in T3 and in the Thai amateur leagues because you probably only get one chance in a lifetime, right, to go there. They're always friendly and welcoming, and yeah, it's always an enjoyable experience.
I think that's the beauty of these cup competitions, isn't it? Especially the League Cup, where you're guaranteed an away tie in the early rounds, and is nice to go somewhere different. So, were there any interesting features there that you can remember?
Yeah, yes, there was the one moment that made us laugh was at the end. The guy came on the PA and he thanked the 98 people who came to the game, and he said official gate receipts today were 1,200 baht and merchandise sales were 2,000 baht. I thought, it's not exactly Buriram, is it? That's brilliant. It's life at the other end of the Thai football spectrum, isn't it?
Although I'm slightly disappointed he didn't come round and thank you all individually. I think that
it wouldn't have taken him that long. I think Samut Prakan had about 10 or 12 fans there. It was a very hard-fought win on a very wet, muddy pitch. I thought, well, that was hard work. But when I got back to the hotel and I looked at the rest of the results of that round, there were a lot of T2 teams went out to T3 clubs. So I thought maybe it was a good result. It was just about getting the job done.
I think there's some good quality sides down in T3.
Oh, definitely. I'd like to see some of those T3 clubs come up, like Songkhla and 1 or 2 of the others. When is it Marco? Marco tweets he travels a lot in that area, and the atmosphere at some of the games looks fantastic. no disrespect to Casetsat and Customs United, but it would be nice to see some of those big T3 clubs come up.
And as we keep saying on this programme, it'd be nice to have some southern representation in the upper echelons of the league system, I think. So moving on from Fleet, and I know it's one of our favourite places, and we've talked about this before, a trip to Chonburi, which is always a delight.
It's a lovely province, it really is.
You were a bit disappointed with the state of the stadium, weren't you?
I was. I said in the blog it was a sort of a combination between Udon Thani's provincial stadium, which is probably the tattiest, scruffiest I've seen in Thai football, and Chiang Mai's away zone, which is generally regarded as one of the worst. So if you combine the two together, you've got Chonburi Provincial Stadium. That away enclosure was a death trap. It really was. You expect us to stand on that? It was just planks of wood that moved whenever you put your weight on them. It really was dangerous. It's a shame to see certain stadiums in that kind of state. It really was poorly maintained.
It is a pity. I was last at the ground, I think about 6-7 years ago, and it was a non-match day, so I just got in and took a few photographs. On that day, it looked really nice. It was well maintained, clean. I think it'd been freshly painted, and it's so sad to see it, isn't it? That they'll neglect the grounds and let them fall into this state of disrepair.
It is. And I may be wrong about this, but didn't Chonburi get to the playoff final last season, lose against MH Nakhon Sri, but they couldn't go up because their stadium was not fit for T2 standard. So can you imagine what MH Nakhon Sri stadium must be?
Well, if anyone's ever been, please send us some photographs or come on and talk about it.
I've done a Google image search before of MH Nakhon Sri Stadium. It doesn't look all that bad, but maybe we're not getting the full picture.
There'll be other things at play there as well. It won't just be the ground, I don't suspect. One other thing I'd like to mention is your hotel experience in Chonburi.
Yes.
Which was a lovely gesture from the club. Do you want to explain how that came about?
Well, it was a wonderful gesture, wasn't it? It was the general manager approached Tan, my wife, and I think he asked her if we were going back to Samut Prakan and then coming back down to Chonburi and coming back down to that southeast corner of Thailand, as it were. And when she said, no, we're going straight from Phra to Chonburi in a couple of days' time. And he said, oh, well, don't worry about the accommodation. We'll sort you out a room at the team hotel. And as you say, that was a wonderful gesture and one we could hardly refuse. And when we got to the hotel on the Friday afternoon, which was the day before the game, the manager was there in the hotel lobby. He sorted the room out, and he told us, any meals you have, any drinks, you put them on the Samut Prakan tab. We didn't do that. We paid for them. I suppose that the Kreng Jai kicked in, and I didn't want to milk the situation, as it were. The room was enough. That was okay.
A lovely thing to do, and a nice reward for all the efforts that you put in following the club around.
It makes you feel part of the family, doesn't it? And let's be honest, whether you're a Man City, a Man United supporter, or a Samut Prakan supporter, it's a fan's dream to be in the team hotel with the players and be able to approach them and talk to them and take photos, etc.
Are you tempted to take your boots next time, just in case he offers you a game as well?
That would be great, wouldn't it, if I took some boots and I could have a kick about with them? We were talking to the receptionist, and he said the football teams really like it. This season they've already had Nongbua and Nakhon Sri United stay there, as well as Samut Prakan, because there's an AstroTurf training pitch next door directly connected to the hotel. If there's ever a chance you could get to train with the team, then that would be it. That's the place to start.
Yeah, well, if you do that, you've got to come back on and tell us all about it, Phil.
I'm still not sure about staying in team hotels, because I think there's a fine line between superfan and stalker. And as much as I would love to take photos of players having breakfast, because it's blog content gold, if nothing else, I'm not comfortable with it. You've got to remember, these are young. At the end of the day, they're professional footballers, yes, but they're still young lads together with their mates.
And the last thing they want is some old bloke going around taking photographs of them eating shredded wheat at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning.
Or trying to engage them in conversation in English. It's always fascinating, because I was an English teacher for many years, and still makes me laugh as some people look terrified when you try to speak to them in English, and some of our players were no exception.
All credit to the club, I think, for doing that and looking out for you. I think it's fantastic. I think that's probably it, mate. It's been lovely to hear about your travels, and hopefully we'll get you back on later in the season and you can tell us about your trip to Krabi. Anyway, it's been great to chat again, Phil. So thanks very much. And like I say, you're welcome on any time, and especially if you do get to make your Samut Prakan City debut. I want to hear all about that.
Right then. Okay.
Thanks so much, Phil. Bye. Speak soon.
Bye.
Yeah, that was good. That was very good. Well done to Samut Prakan City, looking after Phil and Son in that way. I think that's a wonderful gesture. Good support, obviously, from Phil, getting around. Maybe he can make his debut v Pattaya on the last day of the season.
Now, that would be something to see, wouldn't it? I think there's a documentary in that. But you're right, it was a lovely thing to do. It's nice, isn't it, when clubs recognise the fans, and just these little tiny things make a big difference.
Massive.
And you could tell he appreciated it. I mean, it was great that he didn't want to take advantage. I don't think I would have been so humble. I think I'd have been straight in there, running up a big bill at the bar and eating as much as I could.
He's obviously not a northerner.
Well, that's something else we could discuss. Birmingham, is it the north?
Oh, don't.
To finish today, we've got another returning guest. Bill Greaves made his debut on the show last week with his report from the Sukhothai against Port game. And this week, he's doing a little roundup of all the clubs in T1, what his opinions of them are so far this season, and what he expects to happen to them over the course of the rest of the campaign. So this is Bill Greaves with his rundown of every club in T1.
I suspect Bangkok United will end up being champions this year. They're having a good season. Port are not genuine contenders. They are perhaps top of the league, but I don't think they're going to stay there very long. Bangkok Glass beat us. Again, a tough game, and they won. We were beaten by Buriram. That's another story to itself. I made a friend in Lamphun when we went up there, and he didn't go to Buriram because he believes Thai corruption begins and ends with Buriram. When we were beaten by Buriram, we scored a goal, and the referee consulted VAR, and yes, it was a goal, but it could be said that you are not allowed to score against Buriram. So the referee had to go back and check the goal a second time, and needless to say, the goal was disallowed. Later on, there was a foul committed on John Baggio, which did not so much justify a red card as it justified a jail sentence. But needless to say, nothing was done. Chiang Rai beat us, and that was... The first half we played terribly and lost 2 goals. The second half we played well and got a goal back and came very close to drawing the game. I thought that was a sign that we had a wise coach who could turn the game around with his halftime speech. But I was later advised that Coach Pun coached the team in the first half and Coach Lack coached them in the second half. So it was not much of a surprise when Coach Pun resigned after the game. Trat drew with us at home. I was disappointed with that. I thought we should have beaten Trat, but they're having a fairly good season, and I can't complain. Utai Thani, we went down there to watch their last playoff game, and I loved every minute of Utai Thani. We had a great hotel. We found a great restaurant. When you're supporting the home team and they win, needless to say, everyone was happy. The day after the game, we found a great museum to check out. So I'm looking forward to going back to Utai Thani, which I think we're doing this month. Ratchaburi, I think, are having a poor season, and we should have beaten them. The game we played against them was awful. Nakhon Pratom, they came up. I don't think they're one of the stronger teams. I am expecting them to be among the usual suspects fending off relegation. We have to play against Police later on. Police, I believe, are another relegation struggler. We should be able to beat them. Konkan, I am biased against. I just did not enjoy my trip to Konkan last season, and I am quietly hoping that they do get relegated. Chonburi, like Prachuap and Ratchaburi, I think are having weak seasons, and they shouldn't be among the relegation strugglers, but perhaps they are. Muang Thong are down there, and should they be? They had a terrible start to the season. They too are having a weaker season. Lamphun we beat away from home, and I figured that would be the start of a wonderful season. My predictions this year have all been worthless. So, having made a friend in Lamphun, I am hoping that they will escape relegation. They are sometime going to be moving into a new stadium, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Sukhothai, I think, will be at the bottom of the mid-table. Prachuap, Lamphun, Chonburi, Konkan, Police, Nakhon Pratom, Ratchaburi, Utai Thani, and Trat will be the battlers at the bottom of the table. I think that is just about all I wish to say.
Thanks ever so much for that, Bill. It was a lovely soothing voice after Phil as well. I thought I was listening to Wish You Were Here.
Some controversial opinions about Buriram.
I don't think he's in a minority.
Possibly not, but interesting to hear from a different source, not one of the usual suspects.
It's good. It makes you realise that we're not going completely bonkers.
If anybody would like to come on and challenge Bill's opinions on Buriram United, you're very welcome. You know how to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Wait 1 second, my phone's going. I can hear Jamie.
There's the smoke coming out of it as well.
He's not happy.
Anyway, I think we better leave it there before we get ourselves into too much trouble. So, another great week. Fantastic. There's loads going on. And it's been nice to have someone new on the show. So, thanks to Jim for coming on. Thanks to Matt. Thanks to Riza. Thanks to Phil. And thanks to Bill. And thanks to everyone for listening. Have a great week. No top flight or second tier football next weekend. So, get down and support your local T3 side. And obviously, we'll be looking at the national team as well over the coming week.
If I can just plug our Facebook page, fixtures in the BGC Muang Thai Insurance Cup on Wednesday afternoon, where you could severely bolster some attendances. And for groundhoppers in Bangkok who are desperate for entertainment, Assumption United are at home on Friday afternoon, and a rare Monday afternoon match as the Thai Royal Army are at home.
Great, so there's plenty to keep you busy. Get out, watch some football, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks for listening.
Take care wherever you are.